The ghost of CHAZ, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, is still haunting the city of Seattle. Just a couple nights ago, 150 people gathered at the Cal Anderson Park, the former location of the CHAZ, and then romped about the town, smashing windows, damaging businesses, and setting fires. Some even reported an explosion at a local business. And you have to wonder, where are the police? Well, first of all, they struggled to even get rid of the CHAZ in the first place. It existed for quite some time and people literally died. And now they're still not doing anything. There's actually a relatively simple reason, and I'll bring up in just a second. You see, I have to wonder why it is this keeps falling on Donald Trump and the federal government to deal with. Why is Trump needing to send federal agents across the country in Operation Legend? Why did Trump need to send in CBP, ICE, U.S. Marshals in Operation Diligent Valor? That's what's going on in Portland. They're two different operations. In Portland, these far leftists have been trying to breach the building, have literally done it on more than one occasion, and the police in Portland will do nothing about it. In fact, the mayor himself, as most of you probably know by now, joined in the riots. Not the rioting, but he was there with the rioters while they're lobbing commercial fireworks. He's also the police commissioner. As soon as he leaves, then the police declared it a riot. So why aren't the police doing anything? Well, obviously, politics are at play. And you know what? It's going to backfire miserably against the Democrats, and it is. Donald Trump is now slamming the Democrat mayor of Portland. Well, not very kind words for the man who actually joined the riots. But now we're actually seeing Trump's approval ratings starting to go up as this rioting continues. We're seeing support for Black Lives Matter going down. We're seeing opposition to Black Lives Matter going up. Now, here's the simple reason why Trump has to be the one to go and do this. A court has ruled that the police in Portland and Seattle can't use riot control munitions. So they're basically doing nothing. While the crime is skyrocketing across this country, what do we get? Mayor Lori Lightfoot in Chicago has told Trump, you're not sending those feds in here. In Philadelphia, they've said, we will arrest federal agents. Yet what do we get instead? In Chicago, in the middle of the night, they took down a statue of Christopher Columbus. What? It's the same thing we hear over and over again. They're not dealing with the crime. They're not dealing with the rioters. In fact, they're giving into these people, just giving them whatever they want. And the American people do not like it. I've got receipts to prove it. So what can you expect? All of this, what the police are doing and standing down, all of these pathetic attempts to claim that Trump is sending in the secret police will backfire on Democrats because the American people do want law and order. The American people also don't like racism, so they can be sympathetic to Black Lives Matter protests. But when the riots don't stop and when they start getting worse, like we're seeing now in Seattle, roving band breaks into Seattle businesses, setting fires, looting. You mean the looting is back? That was supposed to have been over in early June. Nope, it's back. And Seattle will do nothing to stop it. I actually have the report from a local news outlet saying their hands are tied. The judge says you can't use these munitions, so they're not going to do anything, apparently. Well, then I guess the only response is for Trump to send in more CBP special response team units or whatever, or unit or whatever you want to call it. But here's the main issue. Trump is not actually sending in federal law enforcement to patrol the streets. No, Trump is just sending in these federal officers to protect federal jurisdiction. That's it. The cities will have to deal with themselves, defend for themselves. This may, in my opinion, swing the House and the Senate for Republicans because the Democrats are actively supporting this. I'm sorry, but they are. In Seattle, a Democratic councilwoman is actually leading the protests as they go to politicians' homes. So who do you think the people of these cities are going to vote for? Why the Democrats? Mayor Ted Wheeler literally joined them. To me, this is insane. And Trump is now threatening to send 60,000 more federal agents throughout the country. He's not taking it lying down. And I believe the American people are going to like it. Let's get started and read the news. Before we do, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are many ways you can give, but the best thing you can do is actually two things. Make sure you subscribe because about half of the people who watch aren't actually subscribed, but also share this video. I do not have the capability to compete with CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, but if all of you who watched shared the video, then I probably would do better than those channels. So if you really do think I'm doing a good job, then please consider subscribing and sharing the content. Let's read the first story from Como News. A destructive roving band broke into several businesses Wednesday night and set fire to merchandise in some of the stores. The group of about 150 people first gathered at Cal Anderson Park at about 9 p.m., then roamed about the Capitol Hill neighborhood doing massive amounts of property damage, looting, shooting fireworks, committing arson, according to police reports. Individuals from the group broke the windows of a business in the 1400 block of East Olive Way and then started a fire inside the two-story commercial building. Seattle firefighters extinguished the blaze. No injuries were reported. Then the group made its way. They're seriously giving us a play-by-play of a roving band of rioters destroying businesses. They went down 11th Avenue, breaking more businesses, more windows. More businesses' windows. Some people in the group then broke into a business, stole merchandise, and put it in the middle of the street where they lit it on fire. There's no rhyme or reason to this stuff. It reminds me of that movie, The Dark Knight, the Batman one, where Batman, played by, Christian Bale, is trying to figure out the Joker's motive. Why is the Joker doing these things? And Michael Caine says, some people just want to watch the world burn. Why was this man stealing these rubies and then tossing them into the trash? Good sport. That's what Michael Caine said. So why is it these people are destroying these businesses, stealing merchandise, but then setting it on fire? Some people just want to watch the world burn. The owners of Likelihood Seattle, a local business selling men's and women's shoes, said their store was hit by the group, but police told them nothing could be done. Police are doing nothing. Minneapolis is seeing a ton of cops quit. We got an op-ed from an NYPD detective talking about what's really going on, so I can't entirely blame the police. They're demoralized, they're resigning, they're quitting, and their hands are tied. But what do you think these people of Seattle are going to be thinking to themselves when they're being told the police said there is nothing they can do about it? Sorry, your business was destroyed. Too bad. What do you want us to do about it? The group then went to Broadway and Madison, where individuals used baseball bats and pipes to break all the windows at a Whole Foods store. They threw fireworks into the store and then began looting. And that's not even all of it. Apparently there was an explosion. There was some explosion that happened. Here we have this tweet. Explosion at newly built Uncle Ike's on Bellevue and Olive in Capitol Hill. Graffiti on the building reads gentrifier. Heavy police and fire on the scene. Closed for at least one block. Well, you can't really see anything in the photo, so it's hard to know exactly what happened. It's just a picture of a cop. But we have an update. The federal judge overseeing the consent decree over Seattle police has decided to leave the city's ban on crowd control weapons in place. U.S. District Court Judge James Robart declined to stop the city council's ban, but said the ordinance will need to be reconciled with SPD's court-approved policies on crowd control and use of force. This is the city council's ban. The federal court says we're not getting involved. So apparently the ban will be upheld. The police can do nothing to stop the riots. Well, there's things they can do, let's be honest. But they can't use crowd control measures. I'm sorry, Seattle. If you live in these cities and you vote for these people, well, this is what you can expect. I don't know what else to tell you. If you want to open your business, they're going to come smash it up. Now, what do we hear from CNN about Portland and Portland particularly? It's only a tiny 12-block radius where all the violence is happening. Most of the city is fine. Yes, that's true. But does that make any of these people's businesses and homes less important? Think about how insane that sounds. Oh, the right wing is acting like all these cities are all burning down, but it's only this one area of Capitol Hill that's been under occupation and now is being ransacked. And there was an explosion reported, and they're calling them gentrifiers. But these people, it's fine. It's only a few people. You know what, man? I respect an individual's right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I will not personally tolerate people infringing the rights of even one person. That's why I'm willing to say, hey, police reform makes sense. We should not stand by in the face of real police brutality. We absolutely should call that out because people's rights matter. But so do all of these other people who have businesses, who pay for the police. Already, there's people in Capitol Hill businesses that are suing the police in the city because the police didn't do anything. If you pay taxes for police and the police won't protect you, why do you have to pay? Well, of course you have to pay your taxes. Then you should expect police to come and protect you. Well, I got good news. Although Donald Trump will not be deploying federal agents to your businesses, which many of you may actually want, Donald Trump will be deploying federal agents into Seattle, and maybe that will draw the attention of the far left to the court buildings. Maybe that was the goal of Trump's operation in Portland. Maybe he can say it. Listen, if we weren't there at the courthouse holding back these riots, they'd be going around smashing the windows of your businesses. Maybe people know this. Maybe they don't. Maybe there are a lot of people who realize, I'm glad the feds are here to deal with these people at the very least. Donald Trump, the other day, he said he's going to be sending in a tactical border team to Seattle. Now, look, you may be hopeful that they'll come and help you, but they're just going to be protecting federal buildings. Unfortunately, for some people, they are not the evil, oppressive group patrolling the streets that the left has portrayed them to be. And the reason I say it's unfortunate is because, first of all, in Portland, they're not evil. They're enforcing the law. Second of all, they're not secret. They have badges and they have IDs. But more importantly, if they were just protecting businesses, most people would probably be happy. I've stated this when Trump talked about sending in FBI, DEA, and ATF into Chicago. I'm from Chicago, and I welcome that. Instead, what do we get? Mayor Lori Lightfoot in the middle of the night took down a statue of Christopher Columbus. Who cares? Who wants that? Oh, the rioters. Let me make this very clear for you. In many of these cities, the government is actually taking part in the rioting. When the protesters go out and pull down statues and destroy them, go and loot businesses, what is the government doing? They're protecting the protests. They're lying for them. In Portland, they're suing the feds on behalf of the far left mob. And then they actually just say, don't worry, we'll take the statue down for you. So when you come out and say, please protect our community from these crazy people, they say, no, we're going to help them destroy these statues. Most people don't want this. I've got the receipts. We'll get to that data. But check this out. Donald Trump, he's getting pretty fierce. He's getting fierce. Donald Trump threatens to send 60,000 federal agents into more cities. You need to understand how many that is. We have like 8,000 or 9,000 troops in Afghanistan right now. Trump is saying, I am going to surge more than you could ever possibly imagine. And you know what? If these local politicians, mayors, and police are joining in, and they are in Portland, like Mayor Ted Wheeler, and they are in Chicago, and in Columbus, Ohio, and in Philadelphia, then maybe the feds need to come in to protect the actual people. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. Unfortunately, they mostly can't. The FBI can assist local law enforcement. They can operate where they have jurisdiction. They can operate when these people cross state lines. But the cities and the states have to be the ones doing it. All Trump can really do is protect federal jurisdiction. And that's what you're going to get. You want to know what's happening to these feds that are going out and doing this? They're being maimed. I'm not exaggerating. While some people have been injured, yes, it's always unfortunate. Don't act like it's not affecting the police. Take a look at what they've done in Portland. 3 federal officers in Portland are in danger of losing their eyesight permanently because the far left have come out with high-powered, very dangerous lasers. Presumably, these are the kinds that can actually start fires. And you see them shining them in the eyes of these officers. Well, now 3 may permanently lose their eyesight. The riots that we saw in Seattle the other day, they're not the only ones in recent history in the past couple of weeks. Because I did cover the other ones. Look at this. Group carrying baseball bats targeted businesses, injured offices during Seattle demonstrations. I wondered to myself, when this story came out the other day about the riots in Seattle, in Capitol Hill, how did I miss this? Usually I'm on top of things. I'd have reported on this right away. It's because I saw the story and I genuinely thought it was the same story. An echo. You ever see Minority Report? The same crime happens twice. Yeah. When the story came out about the group with bats roaming around, smashing up businesses, I was like, that already happened. That must be the old story from back on July 19th. Nope. It happened again. And then I realized, wow, maybe that's why Trump needs to send in these feds. It's because they're planning on going out and rioting again on Saturday, and the police are basically just standing down like they're doing in Portland. So Trump says, you know what? We'll protect our buildings. The rest of you are on your own. And if you don't like it, well, we're going to protect our buildings. And that's what you get. So I wonder how the police feel about this. Well, I have an op-ed to show you. I want to read it for you. NYPD detective on quitting, kneeling and the demise of the city. This is from June 27th. It's from a long time ago. A month ago seems to be a long time ago. I want to read you just a little bit because I have more news on Minneapolis and what the American people want. So let's first see what a cop says. He says, I could have stayed. Actually, is this, let me read this. A police NYPD detective set to retire soon with 20 years under his belt tells the Post's Police Chief Bureau, Tina Moore, why he is leaving. He says, I could have stayed a little longer. I haven't been happy with the job for the last 2 or 3 years, but now it's gotten to the point where it's just absolutely ridiculous. I can only speak for the Bronx because I've worked in the Bronx my whole career. And what's going on with the DA's office and the bail reforms, the absolute absence of backing the cops coming from, from city hall down, it's really bad. He says, it's a lot more difficult for the cops who have a lot of time on when things were a lot different to see what it's become. I think it's a lot more difficult for them than it is for the younger cops who are walking into it now. The cops are sitting ducks. Kneeling was the white flag. The kneeling eliminated what little hope the cops had. The kneeling sacrificed the cops. You get the point. This is a demoralized cop talking about the riots, the reform. And I'm telling you this now. When they are putting a cop in Atlanta, when they're putting him on charges, they've charged him with felony murder. He could potentially be hit with a death penalty. That's happening in Atlanta. You think the cops are going to go out and do anything? Nope. Crime is skyrocketing. Bring you now to Minneapolis. This is a news story from the New York Times. Minneapolis police experience surge of departures in aftermath of George Floyd protests. The retention and recruitment problems that many police departments have experienced in recent years are especially pronounced after 4 Minneapolis officers were charged in Floyd's death. July 21st. Yeah, it's like a 20% surge. Check it out. Quote, it's almost like a nuclear bomb hit the city and the people who didn't perish are standing around. Officer Rich Walker Sr., a 16-year police veteran and union official, said of the mood within the department. I'm still surprised that we've got cops showing up to work, to be honest. Yep. Cops are totally demoralized. The riots are still happening. Mass looting hitting Seattle. 57 nights in Portland. A state of emergency in Utah. A state of emergency in Atlanta. Protests in Memphis and Rochester. Protests. I mean real ones. These things are riots, and it's not calming down. And when Trump says we're only going to protect our jurisdiction, they attack him. They blame him. I think the American people are getting fed up. The Washington Post reports Americans support Black Lives Matter, but resist shifts of police funds or removal of statues of Confederate generals or presidents who were enslavers. That's right. It's true. Most Americans do support Black Lives Matter. Among white voters in this country, they now overwhelmingly oppose Black Lives Matter. The riots have caused them to now oppose Black Lives Matter. Among almost every demographic, opposition to Black Lives Matter has gone up. Is that the fault of the rioters, the protests? I'm not going to pretend to know. I think the riots. Now, who's rioting? You can argue the far left has co-opted Black Lives Matter. That's a fair point. The optics are bad. In Portland, they put Black Lives Matter signs up on the barricades at the federal courthouse. There it is. They're flying the insignia of the left. So regular people are going to say, these people have gone too far. And when Trump says he's sending in the troops, I'm willing to believe that his poll ratings are going to start climbing. A lot of people didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe it at first. I said Trump was walking into a trap. I thought that it was going to make him look bad. I was wrong. I admit I was wrong. The polls are certainly starting to show the opposite. But first, let me ask you a question. If you lived in a city with some of the worst gun violence in the world, if you lived here and crime was skyrocketing even worse than it already was, and then your president said, we're going to send in law enforcement to help, and your mayor said no, how would you feel? How would you feel if you were like, we need help? Crime is skyrocketing. Now, how would you feel if instead of actually taking the help and dealing with the crime, they instead said, we're going to tear down a statue with the rioters? That's a step over the line, man. They're joining the rioters? Yup. Wheeler literally did it in Portland. I bring you now to this. Chicago removes Columbus statue in Grant Park overnight after protesters tried to topple it. The city temporarily removed Columbus statues from both Grant Park and Little Italy in response to demonstrations that became unsafe for both protesters and police. Temporarily. I'm sorry. In my opinion, I don't believe that. That's a word. They did remove it. So here's what I see. Rioters show up. They try and pull a statue down. The city says, whoa, 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 what do you think you're doing? We'll tear it down for you. And they bring in the crane, and they do. So when I see government officials going after Trump, tearing down the statues themselves, like they did in Philadelphia and Columbus, they did. They literally did. In Columbus, Ohio, they took down a statue of Columbus. How insane is that? In Philadelphia, they took down a statue of Columbus. This is not one of the Confederates. He's not a president. He's just a symbol of exploration and inspiration for the Italian community for the most part. You can criticize his history, but you can criticize everyone's history. We look up to certain people for the things that were good, not the things that were bad. Well, cities don't care. When the far left loonies, rioters, whatever you want to call them, show up and demand, bring it down, and the city goes, whoa, 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 we agree. Then what do you think regular people are going to think when they go around smashing up businesses? The government agrees. That's what's happening in Seattle. Literally in Seattle. A councilwoman has led the protesters to the mayor's home, to other council members' home, because they would not abolish the police or some other nonsense. I've shown you from the Washington Post, July 21st. The American people do not want the statues being taken down. They do not want to defund the police. This is why opposition is growing. So when the city does this, what is going on? How insane do you have to be? Well, you know what? Trump earned it. Bravo, good sir. Trump, you've earned this one. I'll give you a pseudo standing ovation. This is the daily tracking poll for the president's approval, according to Rasmussen. Now, there's some important things to break down here. We can go what looks like almost day by day. As of the 24th, today, Trump's overall approval and disapproval tied 49% to 49%. Now, you may say, Tim, that's a tie. Nobody approves of him. Well, look at the trend. Look at the trend from Rasmussen. Now, I want to be fair. In the aggregate, Trump's approval is very, very down. Slowly starting to come back up, though. Not very, very huge. Rasmussen does have it doing well. Now, the reason I'm showing you Rasmussen is because I mentioned this in an earlier segment, but they actually, they're one of the first polls to actually come out amid the escalation of tactics and Trump deploying the feds. But it is fair to say this could all be noise. Take it with a grain of salt. It's just one poll. But I personally, in my opinion, I agree with this assessment. Keeping in mind, like I said, the aggregate has Trump down. But the aggregate uses polls from like 2 weeks ago. So we're looking now at some of the latest numbers. Let's go back to the beginning of July 1st. Trump was underwater by 10 points. 44 approval, 54 disapproval, according to Rasmussen. As we move forward to July 4th, when riots erupted, they don't actually have one from the 4th, so we do the 6th. Trump's approval and disapproval got closer together. 47 approve, 52 disapprove. So we can see that even then, Trump's gone down once again on the 8th to being underwater 10 points. You can claim that Rasmussen is biased. They like Trump, but they have given him bad polls in the past couple of weeks. In the recent news where Trump will be deploying the feds, his approval rating has started to go way up, now at 49, and his disapproval has gone way down. Dare I say, in the next coming days, if this trend continues, Trump will go above water in the Rasmussen daily tracking poll. Among likely voters, he's doing fairly well. Among black voters, he's doing very well at 43%. Among Democrats, 30%. This to me is insane. We need law and order. The media would try and lie to you, but guess what? I don't think people trust them anymore. Some people do, and they're probably still trapped believing all the fake news. But when the fake news gets to a point where the insanity and the absurdity is just too much for anyone to bear, they snap. There's a young woman who went viral in the past couple of weeks. She looked like your traditional Gen Z lefty with dyed hair, and she was like, wow, I just realized Trump is actually going after the bad people. Now she's got 50,000 followers. People are listening to what she has to say. When people finally wake up and realize the media is wrong and that we need law and order, Trump's approval goes way, way up. This is why Trump is deploying feds across the country, now 60,000 troops. I believe it's because the American people want it. Now, I've warned about this in the past. I said if the far left keeps doing what they're doing, people will beg Trump for law and order. But you know what? I said it before, and I'll say it again. If I were to walk out my door right now and I saw a CBP guy in full tactical gear with, paintballs or whatever, and I walked up and he was like, howdy. And I was like, howdy. I wouldn't think twice. I'd actually be like, is something going on? Is there something I should know about? And if he said, we're just down here for your safety, you know, there's some concerns about potential riots, I'd be like, right on. I'm going to go to the store. And that's it. You know why? The existence of federal law enforcement does not infringe on your rights. If they begin telling me I can't go down a certain street or whatever, I'll start taking issue with that, sure. But when there's an active riot, I get it. I get it. If I went out my door and I saw these guys and they were fighting with antifa, I'd be like, I'm gonna stay out of their way and let them do their thing because we got rioters romping about. If there's a peaceful protest and they get attacked, I will speak out. But the existence of law enforcement is not an infringement of your rights. I lived in Chicago. I've lived in all these different places. And just because they're there doesn't mean your rights are being infringed upon. Let me know when they do, and I have your back. And yes, I am very alert when they're out standing there saying, I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan of just, random cops and federal agents walking around doing whatever. Can't really complain if they're just walking around doing whatever, though. So Trump says, I'm going to deploy law enforcement. Guess what? Most people aren't concerned. You know why? Because you can walk past a cop and say, howdy, officer. And they'll say, howdy. How you doing? You can walk past a National Guardsman, any military guy, any tactical officer or SWAT member. And so long as you're not in a dangerous situation, you're not committing a crime or anything, for the most part, you're going to be fine. I say for the most part because sometimes you get detained. Sometimes they say, hey, look, probable cause. We're going to search you for this reason. Sometimes there's a riot. I would say for the most part. You walk down your street, you see a guy in military camo, it says, DHS on it, and there's nothing going on, you're probably going to be fine. But I will tell you this too. If I saw that, I'd probably get very cautiously back. Is there anything going on? Should I go the other way? Or you got, and if they said, no, you're all good, man. I'd be like, okay. Because guess what? In New York City, go to Grand Central and you will see tactical officers from the NYPD with rifles standing outside of Grand Central all the time. Nobody's screaming about it. And I never cared. I'm like, I don't care. What am I worried? What am I worried about? Okay. There are real threats. There's real infringements of rights, and we have lawyers, and we try to do our best. I do not want to see someone have their rights infringed upon by the police or anybody else. But this is ridiculous. The riots across this country need to stop, and they're coming back, baby. So this is why Trump's approval has gone up. I'll leave it there for you. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastNews, and I will see you all next time.